I found out my mother had a secret daughter because of a hospital mistake. And honestly, sometimes I still think about the exact moment my entire life split into a before and an after. It started on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was at work when my father called me sounding panicked. "Your mother collapsed," he said quickly. "We're at St. Mary's Hospital." I drove there so fast I barely remember the journey. When I arrived, my dad looked exhausted sitting in the waiting room clutching 2 untouched coffees. My mother had apparently fainted at work from stress and dehydration. The doctors said she'd be okay. But while Dad went to speak with a specialist, I stayed at the front desk filling out paperwork. That's when everything changed. The nurse glanced at the screen, frowned slightly, and asked, "Are you her younger daughter?" I laughed automatically. "No, I'm her only daughter." The nurse's face changed instantly. Not dramatic, just uncomfortable. Like someone realizing they accidentally opened a locked door. Before I could ask what she meant, a voice behind me quietly said, "She has another daughter." I turned around, and my entire body froze, because standing there was a woman who looked exactly like me. Not similar, exactly. Same dark eyes, same nervous habit of biting the inside of her cheek, same tiny scar near the eyebrow. For a second, I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. The woman stared at me with the exact same shock. Then the nurse started apologizing rapidly. "I'm so sorry, I thought you both already knew." "Knew what?" I snapped. The other woman looked pale. Then she whispered, "My name is Hannah." And somehow I already knew. I don't know how to explain it. But deep down, before anyone said another word, I knew she was connected to me. My father returned a few minutes later. The second he saw Hannah, all the color disappeared from his face. That terrified me more than anything, because my dad never panics. Ever. But this time, he looked like a man watching his life collapse in real time. We ended up sitting in one of those tiny hospital family rooms while my mother slept upstairs completely unaware her secret was exploding downstairs. And finally, the truth came out. 26 years earlier, before my parents got married, my mother became pregnant at 19. Her parents were deeply religious and obsessed with family reputation. According to my father, they forced her to give the baby up for adoption immediately after birth. Then they pretended it never happened. My father said he only found out years later after they were already married. "You promised not to tell me," I whispered. He looked ashamed. "She begged me." I couldn't even process it. My mother had another daughter, a whole human being, a whole life. And somehow I never knew. Then came the part that hurt the most. Hannah quietly admitted she'd been secretly speaking to my mother for years. Birthday cards, phone calls, occasional meetings, an entire hidden relationship, while I lived completely unaware. I felt sick, not because Hannah existed, but because everyone had lied to me. Suddenly, my entire childhood felt fake. I remember looking at Hannah and asking, "So while Mom was taking me shopping, she was secretly calling you too?" Hannah immediately shook her head. "She never replaced you," she said softly. That sentence broke something inside me, because she sounded guilty, like she was the problem, when in reality she'd been abandoned before she could even speak. Later that evening, my mother finally woke up, and when she saw Hannah standing in the hospital room beside me, she started crying instantly. Not graceful movie tears, real ones, the kind that come from years of guilt finally catching up to you. "I'm sorry," she kept repeating, to both of us. At first, I was furious. I barely spoke to her for weeks afterward. Every conversation felt poisoned by lies. Then one night Hannah called me unexpectedly. She asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. Honestly, I almost said no, but curiosity won. We sat awkwardly across from each other for nearly 20 minutes making small talk before she finally laughed nervously and said, "You know what's weird?" "What?" "We both tap our fingers when anxious." And suddenly we both started laughing. Real laughing. The kind that accidentally turns into crying. That's when I realized something heartbreaking. We had both lost 26 years because adults cared more about shame than honesty. Hannah told me about growing up wondering why her biological mother never wanted her. Meanwhile, my mother spent decades secretly loving a daughter she was told to forget. And me. I spent my whole life never knowing part of my family even existed. The anger slowly changed after that. Not overnight, but gradually. Because the more time I spent with Hannah, the more impossible it became to see her as a stranger. She wasn't stealing my family. She was my family. A few months later, we invited her for Christmas. My mother was so nervous she barely ate all day. But when Hannah walked through the front door carrying dessert and awkwardly saying, "Do I hug everyone or is that weird?" My father immediately hugged her first, and my mother completely broke down crying. Honestly, so did I. Now it's been 2 years. Hannah comes to every birthday, every holiday, every family dinner. Sometimes we still joke about the insane way we met. But every now and then I catch my mother watching us together with tears in her eyes. Not sad tears, relieved ones. Because after 26 years of secrecy, guilt, and heartbreak, her daughter finally came home. And somehow, we all found each other too.